Hello and welcome to Eco Elsa, where I make videos to help you connect to nature. On last week's video, we went over 5 factors to consider when picking an animal for your classroom or your house. Kiki and I, my little dragon, crested gecko, don't tell her, decided that there's several more tips that we would like to go over for when you are getting your animal, like where you get it from. So let's get started. Ah, baby. Oh, she's doing so good. You like her little dragon wings? For starters, my big one is try to adopt where you can. Adopting an animal that needs to be rehomed is usually a really great way because you're helping an animal that already lives and already needs a new home to go to. Just like we adopt cats and dogs. There's plenty of animals out there, lizards and snakes and tarantulas, that are also looking for new homes because they just weren't the right fit for whoever had them first. My next thing is, if you can't get an animal through adoption, you're just not finding the right fit, or you don't have those things available, is to try and get an animal through a qualified breeder. Find someone who specializes in breeding the animal you're looking for and doesn't seem to be running a commercialized animal breeding operation. You're looking for someone who's doing it at home, maybe as a hobby, but you want someone who's focused on this animal species, that's making sure they're not inbred, that's taking good care of them, that's giving you good pointers. You want someone who's looking for the best home for their animals as much as you're looking for the best animal for you, or the best home, or providing the best home for these animals. You want it to be a good fit. There's a couple of reasons for this going with a qualified breeder in addition. For starters, you're more likely to have a healthy animal because it's not been inbred and it's not been in a big commercialized breeding operation where there's a lot of different animal diseases going around that you might get the animal already sick. 2, you're supporting someone local, or at least someone who specializes in breeding these animals and taking good care of them and finding the right homes for them, and that's really great to support local. 3rd and final is you're not supporting large commercial breeding operations. I don't know how much you guys know about puppy mills or kitty mills, but the mill end means they're like a large commercialized breeding operation. The adults that are having the baby animals are bred over and over and over again, and they're kept in not good living situations. They're sometimes really inbred, and a lot of times the baby animals are mistreated on transportation to the places where they're sold at these big box pet store type places. I don't know how you personally feel, but that's not something I like supporting when getting an animal, because I don't want to be giving money to people so they can keep doing this to more animals. Now, you may not be familiar with this, but there is the same thing that exists for a lot of different reptile and fish species, is where it's a commercialized breeding operation where they're breeding a lot of them consistently, and then the baby animals are the ones that are being shipped to these big box store operations, and a lot of times you'll have like 30 baby iguanas all crammed in a plastic box that's not big enough for all of them. They're kind of like almost stacked on top of each other. And by the time they get there, you know, they've been all crawling on top of each other. There's bits of tail missing. Maybe some of them have lost their tails from stress. They got toes missing and things. Maybe they've lost an eyeball. And a lot of times what happens is they get to these places and they're like, oh, let's find the best looking ones and we're going to put those on display for people to buy as pets. There's lots of research out there on these. You can see for yourself. Videos honestly are not very pleasant to watch, just like a puppy or a kitty mill. So this is why I would either adopt or support a specialized local breeder who's taking good care of these animals and is not commercializing on stacking a ton of baby animals on top of each other in plastic boxes. But, you know, it's up to you what you decide. I'm just giving you the best information I can give you so that you can make the most educated decision about it. So do your research and make sure you're finding an animal from a place where you'd be happy getting that animal from. If you're looking for places to adopt from, usually asking around, maybe checking at local pet stores for postings for an animal. Otherwise, there's usually a lot of different animal societies, or they'll have big conferences and things where you can go and ask around. A herpetological society there's usually about one per every state. But those are good places to start looking if you really want to try and adopt, or find a good breeder. Additionally, I would never recommend you as a parent or a teacher, someone who's not familiar with it, training or qualified, to ever take a wild animal out of the wild and use it as a classroom animal or as a pet. This is usually pretty negative for the animal itself. It might be aggressive. It'll negatively impact that animal. Most likely, in a lot of cases, you can't re-release them into the wild because they could pick up diseases if they were living with other animals and then bring them back to the wild and hurt wild populations, but also because they could lose a lot of the skills they need to survive in the wild. So never take a wild animal out of the wild and use it for a classroom animal or as a pet, because you could hurt that individual animal or the wild animal population. Now, depending on the age of the animal when you get it, there are pros and cons to both of these. So there's pros and cons to getting an adult animal, and there's pros and cons to getting a baby animal. So we'll start with an adult. When it comes to adult animals, if you get an adult animal, they're usually a little bit easier to care for. They're not going to get sick or injured as easily. They might not accidentally choke as easy as a baby animal. So those are some really nice pros to getting an adult animal. The negative is they've been alive for a little while. They might have had some bad interactions with people or other animals in the past, and they are now a little bit more aggressive, unfriendly, and not docile. They wouldn't make quite the best educational animal because they might accidentally bite someone or scratch someone, or they don't want to be held or taken out of their tank. Now, if you're not planning on taking your animal out of the tank to use it for educational purposes, that might be fine and a good fit for you. But it is something to keep in mind if you're adopting an animal or getting an adult animal from a breeder, is to ask about the animal's behavior and if they tend to be a little bit more aggressive. Especially if they have a food aggression. You don't want to be sitting their bowl in their tank with food in it and have to worry about your fingers, especially depending on the size of the animal. When I first got Kiki, Kiki was a little bit aggressive when it came to her food, or if fingers were anywhere near her. Like when I had to pick her up to check and make sure she didn't have any diseases with her eyes and her ears or her cloaca. Since she was a new animal and I was just checking to make sure she was healthy, she did not like being touched or having fingers near her. And she did accidentally, my little 4-inch long lizard, she didn't accidentally. She went after my fingers and she did bite them, but she was scared. She was not used to fingers and she didn't like them being around her. And then also when it came to food, I don't know what was in the past with her when it came to food, but she kind of had a food aggression for a while where she'd go after fingers when they set her bowl down in her tank. Whatever the case may be, she's not really like that anymore. She's pretty mellow now. She's used to fingers being around her, which is good because it makes it easier for me to take care of her. Now, on the flip side, if you get a baby animal, there is some pros and cons to this as well. A baby animal is going to be a little bit harder to take care of because a lot of times they're a baby. They might accidentally try and eat their substrate because they think it's food. They might choke on their actual food because it's just a little bit too big for them, which is why research is important to make sure you're caring for them properly. But the pro of this is baby animals, you're a lot of times the first one handling and working with them. So as long as you're doing proper handling with them, you're not handling them too much, you're not creating bad behaviors when it comes to food, they can grow up to be a very good educational animal because they're used to people. And that's really great if that's something you're looking for in your classroom, is an animal that you can take out of the tank and have run on the carpet while the kids sit in a circle and watch it and use it as a learning tool. So once again, things to keep in mind, pros and cons, baby or adult. So big thing is finding the right animal for you. If a lot of you are worried about getting a snake or a tarantula because you're worried about getting bit by it, I have some news for you. Any animal that has a mouth can bite, even humans. You shouldn't just be worried about specific kind of animals because they get a bad rap. In fact, in all the years I've worked with educational animals, the only one that ever bit me was a turtle named Orwin. And she was overly enthusiastic when it came to food, and she went after the wrong end of the tweezers where my fingers were, and she accidentally bit one of them. It happens. But I've also worked with a 6-foot-long bull snake and a tarantula named Amelia who had a soft fuzzy belly that felt like puppy fur, and neither of those animals ever bit me or tried to bite me. Just because animals have a bad rap doesn't mean you shouldn't be considering them. Once again, you're looking for the specific behaviors of that particular animal, not all the animals as a whole. Now, on the flip side of this, if you personally don't want to get a snake or a tarantula because you are afraid of them, good plan, because you might have to at some point pick up this educational animal for a variety of reasons. And getting something that you are already afraid of, it's not a really good way to start it. No matter what animal you get, for the most part, most animals like some kind of enrichment. Enrichment is when you provide toys or you change the habitat so that the animal is mentally stimulated and engaged, because you don't want it super boring day in and day out for your animal. You want to keep it a little bit interesting so that they can have a happy and healthy life. Now, some animals, this may be changing around their tank so that it's a nude layout and they have to find their way around. Other animals, it might be providing them with a new toy or a new feature, or like Kiki here, giving them some time in their play box outside of their tank so that they can do some exploring and some fun in there. And I'll show you her play box in a second right here. So as you can see, this is the Kiki play box. She's a towel that she can dig tunnels through at her wish. She really, really likes tunneling. Isn't that right, Kiki? Do you like tunneling? Okay, I won't disturb you. You have a fun rest of your time climbing around through there. Check on you in a bit. And lastly, I can't stress it enough, I know I've brought it up multiple times throughout this video now, but do your research. If there could be a final tip all into itself, it would be just do your research. Learn about these animals as much as possible until you can decide which one would be a good fit for you, and then learn enough about it so that you can take care of it well and provide it all the things it needs, its food, its habitat. You understand how much this animal is going to cost, because some animals can be a little bit more expensive when it comes to adopting them to begin with if you don't have an animal that's just a freebie that needs to be rehomed, but they also can cost a lot monthly when it comes to their food. So if I would have a final 6 tip, it would be do your research, as much research, too much research, so that you know anything and everything you can find about this animal that is out there, so that you are ready and prepared to welcome it into your home or your classroom and provide it a good habitat. Educational animals are a great resource to use in your classroom to help teach and educate your students, but as well as for your kids to learn things like responsibilities for taking care of animals, the proper care, that animals have different needs, feeding. You know, you get to learn a lot when it comes to having an educational animal, so that's why I highly recommend them. Also, if you're in a school where you don't really have a lot of natural space outdoors available, having an educational animal is a great way to bring the nature inside. You can learn about the habitat this animal traditionally would be found in the wild. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, just a little fun Kiki little moment. Na sa banyara bicho. Oh, are you trying to get into my hair? Yeah? Oh, and you're succeeding, aren't you? Baby girl. We've talked about this before. Come on. You look so cute with your little wings. Show the camera. Boop. Yes, oh, I see. No self-respecting lizard wears dragon wings. Say bye, Kiki! No, not down my back. You, lizard child, come here. I want you to get hurt. Ugh. There you are. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. So I hope you liked today's video and liked seeing Kiki, and you make sure to click that like button and subscribe. That way, oh really, no more wings, huh? As well as ring that little bell button, that way you can be notified when future videos are up. Especially if you really, really liked this video. Please like it, subscribe, ring that little bell. If you're looking for more resources to help you and your kids get outdoors, make sure to click on the description. I have links to other resources available for you, as well as a link to my email list, so you can join that and get a monthly email of tons of resources to help you and your kids get outdoors, as well as I have links to my other social media accounts. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest, where you can find lots of more resources daily for helping you and your kids connect to nature. As always, I hope you all have a fantastic week. You be safe, learn lots, have fun, and get your kids outdoors. Bye.